Hi, I'm Jay Thomas, and welcome to Bald Tires, a proud member of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. On today's episode, my guest is a guy who's been involved in the car community in Saskatchewan, and especially Saskatoon, for a very long time. And if you've been at a car show this summer in the Saskatoon area, you probably ran into him. Gary Gryschuk joins me to talk about cars. And you know what? He's got a pretty cool online presence. He calls himself Gary the Gear, and does a lot of cool videos on his YouTube channel as well. Go check it out. Today we're talking about how Gary became a car guy, how Gary got into the career he's in, which is part of the automotive industry as well, and most importantly, how this past summer, we think, has been the best year ever for car shows around the province. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. You're listening to Bald Tires, because when you make great memories, you make bald tires. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is supported by Connexus. Wellness, however you define it, is achievable. You don't even need to figure it all out yourself. Talk to Connexus. They'll give you guidance, motivation, and the push you need to reach your goals. They've got you. They're your financial partner, and they know you can achieve your very best, your financial best. Prove them right. Start right at Connexus Credit Union. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is also supported by Direct West. Is marketing getting in the way of running your business? Things like updating your Google listing or headlines for your billboard, making sure your website is in good shape? That's where Direct West comes in. You can get local, expert marketing help for your business at directwest.com. So I've made my way over to a cool garage with a Chevelle up on a lift. That pretty much says it all. I'm here with Gary Gryschuk. Gary, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Jay.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, I'm a faithful follower of J. Thomas Auto.
Oh, that's nice of you to say. That's cool. Well, you know, I've also been following you, and for anybody who's listening, check out all of Gary's very cool videos on YouTube, and your channel, you call yourself Gary the Gear, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we end up at a lot of car shows together. You're doing walkarounds and checking out stuff, and you've done some really cool videos too, comparing and contrasting some cars as well, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. My channel's kind of raw. Everything's basic and raw and unedited, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's just, I graduated from a cell phone. Everybody can start with a cell phone. It's pretty easy to start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I bought myself a GoPro. I stepped up just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I haven't learned how to edit or any of that fine stuff. I got to get better at, learning how to do that stuff. But I'm having fun. It's been a phenomenal season this year.
Absolutely. For anybody who's just joining us, I mean, Gary and I both belong to the Shifters Club in Saskatoon. Gary, you're one of have you been a dragon, or are you still a dragon right now?
I'm a retired dragon.
You're a retired dragon, okay. Yeah. So a former Dragons member as well. And we're always at car shows together. It seems like every couple weeks or every weekend and that sort of thing. So
yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I thought, let's just sit down and talk cars. So, you know what? I kind of start this sort of same way with all my guests, but I love finding out how people became car guys, because I think everybody's got their own story when it comes to that sort of thing.
Oh, wow.
If we go back to young little Gary, what turns you into the car guy you are? You work in the automotive industry right now, and we'll get to that a little later, but take me back. What started it all?
For me, it goes way back.
Yeah?
I can remember being 4 years old.
Okay.
And being first turned on to cars, specifically muscle cars. I was born in 1963, so, I was only a few years old, and muscle cars really excited me. And they were all over, and it was something you saw on a daily basis, and I got really excited about cars. And one thing I noticed about me that was a little different from the other kids, you get an allowance when you're a kid, and this is I guess I've already dated myself, so I think my dad gave me 25 cents a week to cut the lawn and, mow the lawn and take out the garbage and do all the household chores. And then if you're really lucky, you got $1 from the neighbor for cutting their lawn. But anyways, most of the kids, they'd run down to the local the local corner store. Yeah. And they'd fill their pockets with candy and baseball cards and things like that. But I used to buy hot rod magazines.
That's awesome.
Yeah. There was this one little store in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, where I grew up. It was called Kenny's Lucky Dollar. And he used to sell these hot rod magazines, and they didn't have the covers on them. I don't know how how the guy got them, but anyways, they were super cheap, 25 cents an issue. So I could buy, 3-4 issues from this guy, and I did that weekly.
Yeah.
And then later on, there was another magazine called Cartoons. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but super cool little magazine, and it was 75 cents an issue back when I started buying it. And I just filled my room with hot rod magazines and books, and I think that's where I learned a lot of stuff, was just reading all those magazines all those years. And I still read magazines today. I still subscribe to Hot Rod magazine, of course, Canadian Classics and muscle cars and all that sort of stuff. I still do it today.
Were you a Hot Wheels kid?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a big collection of Hot Wheels. I was fortunate enough, my mother would go to the grocery store. Back in those days, they were called Matchbox cars. And then later on, it was Hot Wheels. And I was really turned on to them with the red line wheels and all that stuff. I had a huge collection of those for sure.
My family still has it to this day. My dad had 3 brothers, so he was one of 4 boys. And I don't know what year it would have been. It would have been in the 60s. My dad was born in 1960, so he was the last one. So, but I know that my grandparents bought the 4 boys some Hot Wheels stuff, and it's actually still in our family today. And we have the original orange track set and you remember those clamps you used to screw onto the back of a chair, and that's how you'd launch them, right?
Absolutely.
And then we have the interchanger, and it looks like a race hut, but it's got, you put these big D-cell batteries in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And one track goes on the top of it through it this way, and the other track goes kind of 90 degrees on the bottom through it. There's these big rubber wheels that spin.
The car.
Yeah, and you got a little dial you turn it on with, and you can make it go faster and faster, faster.
Yeah.
And I think it made a figure 8, kind of through the top and around the bottom, and they would just keep going. You could actually set it up that you would fire one in, and it would keep shooting it through.
I did own one of those.
Yeah? Okay.
I did.
We still have it.
You do.
Now it's my nephew's, it's like the 3rd generation playing with those Hot Wheels toys.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's not a lot of the original cars left. A lot of them got, pretty pretty beat up.
Used up.
Yeah. But we still have the machine. So
cool.
It just made me think of that,
That's neat.
I think there's a lot of guys who started with Hot Wheels, right?
Yeah.
They're into stuff like, this Chevelle that we're sitting next to, and they've got classic cars, and they started with the Hot Wheels, right?
Yeah. One of my favorites was a 68 Firebird. And I ended up buying one of those damn cars later. Later in life, I ended up owning one, and it was a car that I was really fascinated with, that body style.
Did you ever get into building models? Was that ever a thing for you? Yeah.
I loved models. Built a lot of models as a kid, and then my son, I got him into building models, and he really loved it too.
I think I would put myself in the same category as being in love with cars really early on. And it was anything I could do to do something around a car, whether it was a Hot Wheel, building models certainly wasn't being able to drive one, but at least it was a car thing,
Yeah,
it was,
you had your hands on it.
Yeah. What were some of the family vehicles you guys had? Was that ever an inspiration? Did your dad have any cool cars or?
Not really. The only one, the one that bothers me the most, he actually won a car when I was, I was probably 12 years old. He won one at it was the Yorkton exhibition. It was a 67 Impala convertible SS.
Oh.
And he immediately sold it.
Oh, no.
That was a terrible heartbreaker. It was blue with a white interior and a white top. I remember the car, and I never got to ride in it. And other than that, no, he was not into the family vehicles were not exciting vehicles by no means.
No. Did you have your hands on them though? Were you working on stuff at a young age at all? Yeah.
Yeah. I worked on mom and dad's cars before I could drive.
Yep.
And my first car I bought when I was 15, and couldn't actually drive it until I was 16. But yeah, parked it in the backyard, and I would play around with it and learn things. And And yeah, it was just lots of fun.
Okay, so what was it?
It was a 68 Ford Fairlane 500.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it had aluminum slots on it, 302 4-barrel automatic car, white vinyl top, white interior, and it was gold exterior. It was a neat car. I ended up killing that car a few years later, though. Got into a bad accident with it and,
Oh, no.
and destroyed it. But yeah, that was my first car.
Is that what you took like for your road test when you got your license?
No, the first car I got a road test in was, I believe it was a 79 Dodge Monaco. It was my mother's car.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Still pretty big at 79, weren't they?
This one was not a super big
No,
car.
okay.
Probably not much bigger than a Chevelle.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It was a nice car, 318 silver with blue interior. It was a really nice car. But yeah, for a while there, my dad, he went through a string of Fords, and then he got into the Dodges, and then later in life he got into the GMs, and I think they're driving Hondas now. So yeah, he was never really loyal. I was kind of, I had the Ford, and I liked the Ford, but then I got turned on to the Chevys. I don't know where or how. But then I became a GM guy, and it's been GMs ever since for me.
Yeah. I noticed. I noticed in your driveway, parking my car. I'm like, oh, look at that, Chevy. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
you're a GM guy.
There's
Yeah.
a few of them out there, all GMs, and yeah, I don't know what it is. I've always had a fascination for GM stuff. But anyway, yeah.
Cool. So you grew up in Yorkton,
Yeah.
and we're here in Saskatoon talking. So. Were you in Yorkton for a long time, or did you take off after high school, sort of thing?
I moved here in 1989. It's kind of funny. I did three things. I had a girlfriend that moved here with me, and she had family here, so that was the whole purpose of moving. And we had been together for a number of years and decided to make the move together. And I did three things when I moved to Saskatoon. First, I obviously secured a job, secured employment. And then we found a place to live. And the very next thing I did, I joined the SDRA here. I just wanted to go drag racing in the worst way.
Oh, cool.
I got in a lot of trouble street racing back in Yorkton. And when I got here, I just wanted to be a member of that track, that organization, and play around at the drag strip. I did that for about 8 years.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of fun.
Cool. So you've been here since the late 80s. So, okay, so you just caught my attention. You got into a little bit of trouble with some street racing in Yorkton. Give me the best race you ever had.
Oh,
Lay it out for us. There must be one that stands out in your mind that you went, oh, that was a good race.
Man, they were all lots of fun.
What did you drive for more? Like what did you own at that point?
I owned a 70 Monte Carlo, and I had that car for over 20 years. That car was a lot of fun, and I finally sold that car when we built this house that you're in today.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that car, I finally let that car go.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. Well, there's guys that have had cars longer, but 20 years was a long time for me anyway. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with that car. Like I say, drag raced it at SAR for the better part of 8 years, and had a lot of fun with it. And then towards the end of my whole drag racing career, I started, the car got progressively faster and faster, and started to break parts in it. I think on average I'd get about 11 runs out of an axle. And I kept breaking axles, and it got expensive, so I had to, retire from that for a while. But I'm really hoping that the Chevelle can make its way out there maybe next year.
Really?
I do have some plans for that.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so, I guess we'll tell everybody what we're looking at here, because we're sitting underneath it, right? Or just about underneath it. It's on Gary's lifts in the garage next to us. 60 what? 6 or 7?
68.
68, okay.
Yeah.
Chevelle, an SS or not?
It's not a numbers matching SS car. It's actually a 136 car. A 138 would be an actual SS. This one is actually a clone. So it started life as a 307 two-speed Power Glide Buckets Council car. And when I got it, it was halfway cloned. And I just kind of took it the rest of the way. It had a 383 stroker in it. And with all the big block badging, I knew that I had to have a big block in there. So I bought a GM crate engine for it. It's 454 HO. And it does have a 12 bolt differential and a turbo 400 transmission and all the things that kind of complete the SS package now. But yeah, this one's been a lot of fun. It's kind of a dream car for me to have this thing.
Well, it's beautiful. Was it in this kind of shape when you got it?
Nearly. It's nearly. Well, I have changed a lot of stuff. I have painted the bottom half of the car.
Okay.
The top half was painted when I bought it. It was fairly fresh. The vinyl top was on it. It's a black vinyl top. The interior was new. I've basically just changed, for the most part, all the mechanicals of the car. The drivetrain, suspension, steering, and all that sort of thing is all by me.
Yeah. Wow. So it was, I mean, the bodywork stuff was kind of finished for you beforehand from the previous owner. And
for the most part, yeah, I did the black lower portion.
But at least you didn't have a whole car. You didn't have to rebuild it from the ground up, that
Correct,
sort of thing.
Yeah,
that's
that
pretty
one's
nice.
Really, actually, quite. It has good bones. It has its original floors and trunk and
Oh, wow.
all the body panels, with the exception of the right rear quarter panel, are original to the car. Which is kind of unusual. This one apparently, now the story I got, you never really know for sure, but
Sure.
when you buy a car, the story I got was this one used to run around in Rosetown, Saskatchewan, and then it disappeared, and it ended up in a Quonset or a barn for about 20 years, and it was separated from its frame and just tucked away. And the fella that I bought it from, he had purchased it, reassembled the car, and kind of fluffed it up and sold it. And
Wow.
I just kind of finished it.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty good story. I mean, that's cool. So it's a Saskatchewan car. That's
Yeah.
even neater, right?
Yeah.
Because you'd expect something like that with, a body that nice to come out of the States somewhere,
Yeah.
Arizona.
Some of the really, really nice cars are in definitely a drier climate for sure.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I have to kind of believe the whole story about being in a barn, being as it does have its original floors, original trunk, that kind of rockers, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not common, for sure.
No kidding. No kidding. That's pretty sweet. So this is just one of many cars you've owned over
Yeah.
your history.
I've had a few cars. I used to, I ran around with that Monte Carlo in the summer for 20 years. And what I would do in the wintertime, I would purchase a car. Back then you could do that. You could purchase a car and fluff it up, drive it for the winter, and then sell it in the spring. And then I would drive my hot rod all spring long. And I did that for a long time. And I ended up with a lot of different cars. I also, in this garage here, I've built several. Built the Firebird, of course.
Yeah.
And one day the wife, she decided she wanted a car, so we found her a '68 Skylark convertible. Built that in here as well. That one was a lot of fun too.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was my first hand at custom stuff. Shaved door handles and shaved trim pieces and suspension mods and little things like that. Was the first time I really got into that, was on that Skylark. And that was a good learning experience.
So what kind of shape did that show up in, that Skylark? Was it?
It was terrible.
Oh, really?
Originally, that car was from BC, and it was basically rotten from the door handles down. It's kind of a funny story. I found the car on Kijiji one morning before I went to work, and I showed the wife. I said, there's this nice little Skylark. Of course, the pictures look nice.
Sure, yeah.
And it wasn't far from where we live here. And I said, we should go look at this car. And I got tied up at work, and she had phoned me, and she said, boy, we're going to go look at this car. And I said, well, why don't you scoot over there? It's only a few blocks away. You have a look at the car, see what you think. It's going to be for you, so you might as well see it first. And she did that, and she phoned me up, and she says, well, I really like the car, but I don't know what to say. You're not here. I don't know how to make this decision. And I said, you know what? It's not a lot of money. I think it was $3,000 or something.
Yeah.
Something in that neighborhood.
Not a lot, sure.
And if you like it, just buy it. Just buy it and bring it home, and I'll see it later.
Yeah.
And and then I got home from work, and I walked in the garage, and it was like, oh. But she was so excited. She was just so happy to have that car.
That's cool.
As rough as it was, it had no seats, it was a convertible. The top was destroyed. It needed everything.
Oh God, floors, trunk, the whole.
It
needed. Oh my gosh,
it needed everything.
Did you take the body right off the frame for that?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I just started. Well, we kind of made it drivable for the summer.
Yeah.
I had to do, the cooling system, the rad was bad, the carb was bad, the brakes were bad. I had to go through all that, and we threw a set of tires on it, so made it safe.
Yeah.
And then we drove it around that summer, on nice days because we had no top. And anyway, I basically decided, well, when winter's here, I'm going to lock myself down in the garage and just cut away at this thing. And I pulled out the just absolute, I probably shaved 500 pounds off that car in body fill.
Oh my God.
It was terrible. I've never seen a car like that.
You filled your garbage bin outside, basically.
I did, yeah. It was 3 and 4 inches thick in some places.
No.
Yeah, I just ended up cutting it all off. And of course, the Buicks, at that time, they really didn't have a lot of body panels you could buy.
No.
I had to hand fab most of that car.
Wow.
And the sad thing about the whole deal was I got finished with the car. And that was the reason, partly, why I did so much custom stuff to it, because you couldn't buy the trim pieces. You couldn't buy even the door handles. And a lot of the body panels, you couldn't buy that. So I kind of did my own little custom touches just to get us around all that stuff. And then, that spring, we got driving the car, all the body work's done. The interior's now done. The top is now done. It's a fairly presentable car. It hadn't been painted, but it's far more presentable.
Yeah.
And the wife told me that she no longer liked the car.
Oh no.
So.
Oh no.
Yeah, so then the car went up for sale. I'm still a little mad about that. It was every day and all winter long, and I was quite happy with the way the car turned out, but she wasn't. And we ended up selling the car. It actually sold pretty quick, and we ended up buying the Chevelle.
Yeah.
In place of it. So yeah, it was. It turned out okay.
Yeah, in the end, it was all right. But I can understand what you mean about putting all that work in. And I give you full credit, full marks, Gary, because you're in the automotive field as a day job.
Yeah.
And then you'd come home and you'd pound on this thing all night.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of cars in one day, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. The new stuff isn't quite as fun to work on. So when you come home and you can play around with an old car, it kind of relaxes you a little bit.
Okay, so it's different for you.
Yeah,
it's not in the same category in your head, basically, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when I get an old car through the shop, it's a lot of fun. Like when you bring your car to our shop, Jay,
yeah.
I enjoy working on that stuff. That's as much of a rest for me as anything.
Really?
It's just really a pleasure.
Well, here's the shameless plug then. Looking for a wheel alignment on an older vehicle, Gary is the guy, and you go to J&L Frame and Alignment and see Shane and Gary, and it's while we're talking about it, that's the thing. There aren't that many places left you can take an old car to.
Yeah,
so you guys are like a heaven because
we get paid by the hour. A lot of shops now are flat rate, and they're not always that interested on working on the older stuff. Sometimes it's a little more time consuming. and you have to take care. You're working on stuff it's somebody's baby.
Yeah.
So you got to take care, and sometimes it takes a little longer. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it. And a lot of guys, well, a lot of the newer techs, they're not well versed on the older stuff.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the, if you don't mind, and it's going to be a little bit of technical jargon, but what is the difference in doing an alignment on my car versus a new one? Walk me through what the difference is, really.
Oh gosh.
I mean, I know there's a lot of steps in there. I know the back end, for example, it's an axle, solid axle, so there's nothing really to do there, right?
Yeah, whereas a lot of the newer cars now, it's all independent front and rear suspension.
Right.
And you're dealing with struts instead of coil springs, and right down to the tie rods and the ball joints, and everything is different. There's a lot more, there's a fair bit of adjustability on the newer cars today. However, they also have a lot of electronics today that need to be reset when you do a wheel alignment. Lane departure.
Lane keep assist, that stuff,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. All this radar systems and cameras have to be recalibrated when you do an alignment now. So it's fairly involved.
Wow.
And there's a lot of, as far as the adjustments go, there's a lot of cams, eccentrics, where on the older cars, it's a lot of shims.
Okay.
And I just enjoy it far better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot more fun. A lot, it's just my passion.
That's
Working
cool.
on- Yeah.
That's cool because, I think everybody's got a passion. I think everybody can figure out what they're really into. You've obviously made, your passion into your career. And like you said, there's some things that are less fun to do and some things that are more fun to do. But, to be able to work all day on cars and then work all night on a car and, and have this Chevelle looking like you do, it really truly is your thing. That's amazing. Because there are plenty of guys that are car guys. I call myself a car guy, but I don't think I could work on it all day. I'd probably get so friggin' mad at it. I'd want to drive it out the door. Something like that. So that's pretty cool. You can do it all the time.
Well, thanks, Jay. I enjoy it. It's just something I've just always enjoyed doing. Being close to this old stuff and turning a wrench on it. It just makes me feel good. And it really makes me feel good when people like yourself bring a beautiful older classic vehicle to my shop and I get to work on it. And then when I'm done, I get to go for a little test drive. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is cool.
I've had the opportunity to drive some of the most beautiful cars I could ever dream of. The neatest stuff ever.
Yeah.
Huge horsepower cars. Blower cars, back half cars, pro street stuff, everything you can imagine, and the cool classics, 40s, 50s, 60s, anything you can imagine.
Yeah.
Some of the neatest stuff I've had the opportunity to drive, and of course I don't go far, and I certainly don't go fast. It's not mine. But it's just a neat experience to be behind the wheel of all these different cars. I really enjoy it.
So have you done, work in the automotive industry? I mean, we call you a technician now, right? Is that what your title is, I guess, right?
I guess, yeah.
Have you done that for a long time? Has that been forever?
No.
No?
No, I was in a lot of different trades. I always knew I wanted to be in the automotive industry, but probably the one trade I was in the longest, other than this trade, was I was in the water treatment business for a long time.
Oh, neat.
Right from the time I was I think I was hired at 13 years old, and I was in that industry up until about 15, 18 years ago. I can't remember now.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and then it's been automotive ever since. But yeah, that was a neat experience as well. I got to, I learned household wiring and then carpentry and plumbing, lots of plumbing.
Okay.
I learned all that stuff. So it was a neat experience. But after, several years of that, I got tired of it, and I knew cars were my thing. I was actually still working on cars on the side while I was in that business.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it was kind of an escape for me. And I get to, all day I get to work on, people's cars, And like they say, if you can, find something that you like to do, it's not really a job.
No. So were you an adult? And did you go back to school to become a tech? Is that how
I
it
took
worked?
a lot of courses.
Yeah.
I took every alignment course they can throw at me. I think I've had 6 of them now.
Cool.
I was in the tire business for a long time. There's several courses I took there, and of course, suspension and steering courses and all those kind of things kind of go with it, and brake courses, all that stuff.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, learned how to do all that stuff properly. Been doing it a long time, but then you learn how to do it properly and measure run out on brakes and all the, anybody can do a set of brake pads and shoes in their driveway, but then
Yeah.
you learn how to do it properly. It's totally different. So now you got to integrate that to your daily routine because, of course, you're working on other people's stuff.
Yeah. Would you call okay? I'm curious how you categorize yourself, Gary. Would you call yourself a perfectionist when it comes to stuff? You seem like a very detail-oriented guy. I've seen under the hood of this Chevelle, and it is spotless, and you certainly have a lot of care.
Well, thank you, Jay. I don't know that I'd call myself a perfectionist. I like the little details for sure.
Yeah.
I think details are important. Yeah, I really like seeing those details.
Yeah. That's pretty sweet. So how long have you been at JNL now?
I think it's 8 years for sure. This
wow.
might be going on 9 now.
Wow. Okay. So it's a
Yeah.
while.
And I was about 6 years in another shop.
Yep. Doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of the similar stuff and a lot of tire stuff.
Mm-hmm. What has been the most? What's been the most challenge since you focus a lot on suspension stuff, right? That's
Yeah.
a big part of what you do,
Yeah.
right? Doing alignments, suspension modifications and changes and repairs and stuff like that, right? And I mean, and are you part of the crew that works on frame stuff, frame straightening and things like that at Jerry's?
Don't do a lot.
'Kay.
I help when I'm asked to.
Yeah.
But really not my forte. It's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
I can read the machine, the actual frame diagnostic equipment we use. It's a laser machine that measures frames and whatnot, and I know how to read that stuff. But as far as how to make it correct, that's a whole different animal. I've watched them do it for a number of years now, and it's interesting. Nowadays, the frame business has really changed. It used to be you could be on the older cars you can do pulls, and the newer vehicles you could do sections, where the frames were actually sectioned at the factory, and nowadays you got the littlest, bit of damage on a frame, and it's a whole frame.
Really?
Basically doing a whole swap on the newer stuff. That's kind of what it's turned into.
Really?
Yeah.
And even unibody cars.
Yeah.
Like that means
unibodies.
we're swapping everything?
Yeah, unibody stuff. It's tricky. Again, you got to pull the engines and the transmissions to do the rails properly because they're all welded and glued to the structure. They're part of the structure of the car.
Sure.
It's fairly involved process, and you don't really see that happen on a lot of the older unibody cars anymore. It's got to be a brand new vehicle for them to warrant the work.
Yeah.
It's just so expensive.
That's right. Yeah.
Labor intensive for sure.
Wow. So with the stuff you're doing daily, what's give me an example of some of the ease. Like, is there a car that comes to mind that you go, well, this is one of the easiest cars to do an alignment and some work on?
Oh gosh. The easiest vehicle, newer vehicle.
Newer, older, whatever.
Probably the easiest vehicle to align today, I'd have to say, is the Dodge Rams.
Really?
Dodge Ram trucks. Believe it or not, they you can dial them in so very close, and they've did this the eccentrics on them. They're just beautiful to align.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a Chevy guy, and I certainly love aligning a Dodge Ram truck.
Okay.
They're just so nice to do.
What ends up being the hardest thing to do?
Oh gosh, anything that's European.
I was going to ask if, like, say something like a Land Rover that's got air ride in it. Does that get
some of those are
really
tricky.
complicated?
I find for sure BMWs, Mercedes, that kind of a thing
Flavor,
are very difficult to do. It's very hard. They've got lots of adjustment in the cars, but very, very hard to get to, and you almost need special tools just to reach those eccentrics because there's so many things in the way. There's so many things going on. Very, very, I hate to say this, but very over-engineered, I guess is the word.
Hey, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I got a good story that goes with that because I don't want to rag on Volkswagen because I think VWs are pretty cool cars too, but my parents had a Volkswagen Golf more recently, like an '05, something like that. And my mom noticed one day that the driver, or we open the passenger door, and the light isn't coming on, the dome light.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's just, but you open any of the other doors, and it's working. Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, well, it's probably that button, like the button in your frame of the door somewhere, or the door, where the latch is. There's a little, spring-loaded button. That was way too easy for Volkswagen. They thought, let's change this. They integrated the switch into the locking mechanism inside the door.
Oh, wow.
And the problem is it's part of the locking mechanism. It's not separate pieces. It's all one thing.
Yeah.
So first off, if you want to get the light to work with that door again, the part is like $400.
Oh, wow.
To get to it, door panel, there's a metal panel inside the plastic door panel.
Yeah.
Window comes out. You rip all the guts out of the door to change that
one piece.
That
sounds very familiar.
Not an $18 spring-loaded
right
contact switch that's in the door frame like there have been since forever. That was
very, very complex repair.
Very complex. And for what? Why make that so hard? Why make it so difficult? Why, I don't know, the buttons work in every other vehicle.
Yeah.
Right? We can open just about any door on the block, and there's a little spring-loaded button in there.
Yeah, very simple.
I don't know. They're all doing it, so why change it? Anyways.
Yeah, I agree. I see a lot of that in Volkswagen as well. And like I say, you almost need a new toolbox to fix those cars, and it's great if that's what you do. You've already got all the torques and inverted torques and reverse torques and everything's torques on those cars. The axle nuts on those are torqued to something like 300 and some foot-pounds, and they're all a Torx head on them.
What?
And it's very it's tricky.
How do you get that off?
Yeah, it's tough.
Do chin-ups on the breaker bar to get them off, or what?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, some of them are difficult for sure. It's just something I'm not used to. Probably to the guys that are used to doing that stuff, it's a piece of cake for them. And they've got the tools to do it. But I don't see enough of them. And when I do see one, it's just a little more difficult.
No kidding. Yeah, like that's a complicated car to work on.
Yeah,
no
for
doubt.
Sure.
So, being a former Dragons member, had this in the Dragons show? Has this Chevelle made it in?
This one hasn't been. The car previous to it, my Firebird was. It was actually on the poster in 2009.
Oh, that was your car.
Yeah, along with Bruno Kaniski's Corvair. They were both fresh cars in that year, 2009, and they appeared on the poster.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to have your car on T-shirts and coffee mugs and dash plaques and that sort of thing. But yeah, that was fun building that one.
I've started trying to collect as many Dragons posters as I can get my hands on, and I'm kind of starting to run them around the upper edge of my garage and trying to put a collection together. But I grew up going to that show as a kid, every year, and that it's kind of funny. I liked some of the weirdest stuff. I liked the big flowy pontoon fenders of the 20s and 30s, and there used to be more of that stuff at Dragons. It's interesting how the demographics are changing.
Yeah, times
are changing, right?
Yeah.
I wonder though where all these cars are ending up, and what I mean is, who out there now today says to themselves, I really want, 1925 Chrysler.
Yeah.
Who says that anymore?
Yeah.
But there are definitely some out there that have been kept and restored and have been a part of car shows maybe 20 years ago. What's happening with those cars?
Yeah.
I wonder. Because now it's stuff like what we're sitting beside, right? Like this is in its, if you call it its prime, right? Like, yeah, muscle cars were certainly the thing when they came out, when you were a little kid.
Yeah.
And now in the sort of the car show world, this is the big focus.
Yeah, they're kind of
the 60s thing.
The big thing now, the big collectible item. But yeah, I still have an appreciation for all those and all the stuff you're talking about. And yeah, I don't know where they've all gone, but it used to be all customs and hot rods back in the day.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, that sort of changed with the times. And yeah, the collectors, I think, dictate a lot of what people are doing.
Yep.
And where the direction goes. Whatever they're collecting is what everybody wants. And that ends up on the showroom floor at the Dragons Car Show.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you ever get a chance to work on some really old stuff at the shop? Does that ever happen to you?
Oh, yeah.
Like stuff that rolls in from the 30s and 40s and 50s?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, it's not often, but yeah, there's some neat stuff. There's some incredible cars. I couldn't even begin to list some of the wild cars that have been through the door there.
How do you know? I mean, here's me knowing really nothing about how alignments are done. I've kind of watched you up in the shop from a distance, kind of here and there, and strapping the things onto the wheels, and and it's a computer system now, right? But it wasn't always that way.
Yeah,
right?
Guys used to back in the day. They used to use strings and bubble gauges, and we actually still have in the shop a bubble gauge that attaches to the wheel, and it would give you your camber and caster and all those things, and then do your toe with a measuring tape.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that what you have to do still with some stuff that comes in that's, say, handmade? Is that how do you figure that stuff out?
If I can get the camera heads on the wheels, I can use the computerized machine, and that Hunter machine, it's all Hunter equipment, and that has, like I said, I've had a lot of unique cars through the door.
Yeah.
And it's never stumped me for specs.
What?
It has every spec you can imagine in that machine. And if I ever do run across something where the spec is not in there, I can contact Hunter online, and they would provide me those specs immediately.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
So, I mean, for anybody who doesn't really know what we're talking about, basically you get a car, it rolls into your shop, up onto the hoist. You punch in my car, 1969 Buick Electra.
Yeah.
It has the alignment specs already programmed in.
That's right.
It knows what it should be set up to.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that goes back for decades before my car was even built.
Yeah, it sure does.
So stuff can roll in from the 30s, and you probably have an alignment spec.
Yeah, I can't think of any 30s cars right off the top that weren't already hot rods.
Okay.
Like Model A's and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, most of those are, I'm not getting anything with wooden spokes through the doors. I'll be honest.
But there must be some 40s and 50s stuff that is original cars, right?
Yeah, and we're getting those for sure. And yeah, the specs are in there.
That's crazy.
You can name a car and it'll be in there.
Well, that's pretty wild.
Incredible. It makes my job easy, that's for sure.
Doesn't it ever? That's pretty cool. There's you're doing this sort of alignment stuff. Are you also the guy ripping suspension stuff apart in the shop too, or are you just the final guy who's doing alignments?
No, I'm doing brakes and suspension and steering.
So you're pulling it all apart and replacing parts and all kinds of stuff.
And I don't get it. We have a journeyman guy there that does a lot of things like timing belts on the newer cars, and specific things like that. There's some wiring. Like these new cars are incredibly complicated when it comes to electronics.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that really deep, crazy, hard to diagnose stuff, I let him take care of that. And I kind of concentrate on what I'm good at. But we also have all shops, all the, more popular shops will have software programs called Identifix and ProDemand. And even if I'm tackling something that's real tricky like that, I can go online and punch in that vehicle, and it'll give me a process for diagnosing, say, really tricky electrical issues. And it'll tell me, how many volts at this wire on this terminal.
What the
with
color
key on.
is. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I have been in that, pushed into that corner a few times and been able to kind of flub my way through it with the help of our, software programs that we have today in our shops.
Do you ever get to like do some cool customized work with suspension stuff like that? Do you ever get somebody rolls in and wants something lowered?
Yeah,
that happen a little bit.
We do a little bit of fab work in our shop as well. Yeah, there's a lot of neat. I kind of, for the most part, I don't do a whole lot of fab stuff myself. We do have a guy that's really, really sharp at that stuff.
Yeah.
But for diagnosing problems and setting up suspensions, a lot of people are going with coilover shocks now, and setting, pinion angles and thrust angles, ride heights, and then there's a lot of neat trickery that I had to learn, and that I do on a regular basis at the shop on hot rods and different custom builds. And
Yeah, I was going to say that's the stuff that's like not kind of written anywhere in a book. That like knowledge you have to just gain with experience. You've been doing it for such a long time now, and plus you've been working on cars yourself for just your whole life. So there's definitely going to be things that's just not really written down anywhere. How to achieve a successful completion with all the everything that you just have to know.
One thing that's really unique to our shop, and it's a collision shop for the most part. We get a lot of stuff sent from dealerships. They can't figure out the alignment. They can't, other shops, if they run into a problem, it all comes to me. And I got to figure it out. It's a challenge sometimes.
That's cool.
When the alignment guy across town has an issue with an alignment, he can't get it, so he's sending it over to us, and now I got to figure it out. And that kind of puts me on the spot. I got to figure this stuff out, but there's a process and there's numbers and it's all numbers. And looking at some of this stuff, like physically looking at it, you can't tell what's bent unless it's severe.
Yeah.
Or how much it's bent and which way it's bending, and unless you use the equipment and the charts and graphs and all the things that go along with trying to figure out. Certainly if you're doing SGI work, they don't want you to replace the strut, the spindle, the lower control arm, the upper control arm, the inner and outer tie. They don't want you to replace all that stuff. They want you to attack the stuff that's actually bent. They want you to just replace and repair the damaged product.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to figure out what it is, and if you've made a mistake and called the wrong part, you're in big trouble. So
I guess.
Yeah.
Pretty big compliment though that all the other guys are sending their stuff they can't figure out to you though, isn't that? Like, that
sometimes it's tricky.
It's a pain in the butt. But I guess if you look at it from the other side of the bowl, the fish bowl, that's a pretty big feather in your cap that you're the guy that they call in for that sort of thing, right?
Thanks, Jay. It is. Sometimes I wish I wasn't the guy. In all honesty, sometimes I wish, geez, I don't know what's wrong here. I can just send this to the frame shop and let them figure it out. That happens a lot. It happens at least once a month, sometimes more.
Really?
Yeah.
Crazy. Hey, I thought we'd switch gears for a second. In your own personal collection, I mean, we got the Chevelle here. What's been your favorite all-time car you've ever had? Do you have one?
I have to say this thing.
Is it? Yeah.
It is. Yeah. All the cars I've owned and built, I'd have to say, at this point in my life, that is my absolute favorite.
Yep.
It's just a joy driving these full frame, as you know, full frame GM cars.
Mm-hmm.
They ride and handle so nice. This one actually has not quite as nice as yours as far as the big car, the nice big car feel.
Yeah.
Yours is king. This is down the road a bit. It handles and rides so nice, that full frame car. That's why I think I like the Chevelles so much. The Camaros, the Firebirds, I'm talking the first and second gen ones. Very nice cars. I've built a few of them, but it's a little more stiffer ride. It's a different feeling.
Is it?
And I've always grown to appreciate, I think for having that Monte Carlo for 20 years.
Yep.
I just really liked that car. And I guess that's why I had it so long. And I came to appreciate that nice cushy ride and that nice handling. And
Well,
nothing like a full frame car.
And I mean, this is, maybe for what my Buick makes up in the real cushy ride, this makes up for in horsepower and get out of the way juice. Because I mean, with what you've got in there, would you share the story of the recent?
Oh yes, my shortcomings.
Well, not yours, just the Chevelles. I mean, you and I were out at a show together, right? We drove all the way out to Kenaston.
Yeah.
And I think I was behind you, or just maybe 2 cars behind you. And
my car was making some crazy noise.
Yeah. So we pulled over and kind of had to listen and wondering what's going on. But so share what happened. Like, what was the story there?
Yeah. So I don't know where to start with that. So yeah, we drove out to Kenaston. At this point, that engine had been in the car for 5 years. It only had 3,400 miles on it, but it's a GM crate engine. And yeah, we drove out to Kenaston. Didn't miss a beat the whole trip. And I'd been into a lot of out-of-town trips with it and never had any issues. And then we started the car to leave. There's this rattle in the motor, and of course we're all parading out. There's several of us making our way out of that big camp or that big area we were in. And I thought, wow, that's a crazy noise. Is that my car? And I thought I better pull over. So yeah, I pulled over, and that's when you came over, and Kelvin and some other folks came by, and yeah, there's a nice rattle on the left bank of that engine, 454 HO. So anyway, made the decision that, I could have had the car trailered home.
Yeah.
At this, looking back on it, it wouldn't have mattered.
No.
But I made the decision to just limp it home, and I got it home and diagnosed the thing. And here, it was hole number 7. Lifters were bad. And then I dug into it a little further, and here the cam was actually destroyed.
Oh,
and
man.
Those 2 lifters were destroyed on hole 7, both intake and exhaust. And it was all due to the fact that the engine was actually assembled incorrectly, right from brand new.
So it's got roller?
Yeah, it's got a roller camshaft in it. And there's a little device, it's called a dog bone, and it looks just like a dog bone, and it holds the lifter square to the camshaft.
Right.
And this one was actually, on that particular hole, it was flipped upside down. And it was running those 2 roller lifters about 15 degrees off center.
Wow.
And I'm just shocked that it lasted as long as it did.
So it was actually upside down. The whole...
Yeah, that little device, it just keeps them square to the cam.
Yeah.
And it was flipped upside down, and it just running them crooked.
So the roller was still rolling on top of the cam lobe, but not square.
Yeah, just not straight.
Not straight.
Yeah, off about, I think it was around 15 degrees or so, and it just tore it up.
So can we assume then that, like, on the trip out there, it was quiet and running fine, that they were still square to the cam, and you started it up on the way home? Is that when they probably turned on you and created the knock?
They were turned and skidding along the whole time.
It just happened to be that moment that it decided to make noise.
It's on these 454 HOs, they have a non-adjustable valve train in them, so it's not like on your engine where you can actually turn down the nut on the rocker arm to tighten up this.
Actually, believe it or not, the Buick is not adjustable either.
Oh, it isn't. Oh,
no, that 430's got.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, same story as what you've got. Yep.
Yep. So now if you get a decent amount of slack in those systems, it will start to make noise, and that's what happened here. I think the only reason that car or that engine lived as long as it did to that point was because I have done so many oil changes in that car. In that 5-year period, I had changed oil 12 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every spring and every fall. And last year, I only put 300 miles on that car,
Yep.
and I still changed oil before I always like to store it in fresh oil, just like I do my lawnmower.
Yep.
I just treat it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just all those fresh oil changes kept it alive as long as it did. And it's just bizarre. But anyway, I also learned that roller lifters take several thousand miles to actually break in. That was something I didn't know at the time either. So that could have been a factor as well. Yeah.
It was just getting broken in at that point or around there.
Yeah. Well, in this case, you could actually see, I could show you the camshaft. There's nice big grooves in it.
Really?
And yeah, I just got to a point where it decided that, oh, there's enough clearance here. We're going to start rattling away.
Yep.
And it was one hole specifically or it was one valve specifically that was really loud. And that was the exhaust side. It had dug a deep groove in that cam lobe.
Yep.
Yeah, anyway, unfortunately, 3,000 miles into it, no warranty.
Oh.
It took me about 15 hours to fix the whole thing.
Oh, man.
15 hours of labor and I haven't got all the bills yet. I'm going to guess it's going to be around $1,000. So
Yeah. Good that you can do it yourself, though, I guess, right?
I was lucky. Yeah, I followed all GM's guidelines as far as warranty goes. You have to, when you buy a crate engine, you can't just install it at home in your driveway. You need to have either GM themselves or a reputable shop recognized by GM to install it and do all its service work. And I followed all those guidelines. Our shop is actually recognized by GM, our local dealership. And I bought the motor from that local dealership. I actually installed it at our shop. And all the service work it was done by me. But because it has over 3,000 miles on it, the warranty is long gone.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, man.
I think it's, I forget what it is now, 3 years. It's not a bad warranty, but 3 years disappears pretty fast in our old classic cars. We don't drive these in the wintertime.
That's right.
Especially in Canada, we don't drive these things unless it's nice out, nice days, summertime. That warranty goes by pretty quickly.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember if it's 30,000 miles, 3 years, something like that. Anyway, I was well past that.
Oh, that's, and the whole nose of the car, not quite everything had to come out, but rad and everything, all that had to come out, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the last time I've done a cam swap was, I did a few of them in this garage here. The last one was in a car with no front clip on it, very easy to do.
Yeah.
And the time before that was the engine was on an engine stand, very easy to do. Yeah. And this time I'm working over the fender and it was
bent
not
over.
fun.
Yeah.
15 hours bent over the front of the car. Of course, all the front of the engine had to come off. The only thing I was a little worried I'd have to pull the grill out of the car, but I was lucky. The valence in between the bumper and the grill had to get loosened and dropped down a little bit.
And you could sneak it through.
Yeah, that little 1/4 inch I needed.
God, that's lucky, hey?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm really happy that whole fiasco's behind me. That took about a month out of my summer.
Yeah.
But you know what? Speaking of this summer, man, did we have a fantastic season.
I know.
It was an absolutely just a phenomenal. This was the most fun, even with my breakdown and losing a month of seat time in the Chevelle. This was the most fantastic season I can ever remember in Saskatoon for car events.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? I'm trying to think of a time that we got rained out this summer, and I don't think we did.
Yeah.
Like the weather cooperated. It was a pretty dry summer, let's be honest. There's lots of people in crop producers that wish it had rained, but for what we do, it was dry. And
for the car community,
because most of us aren't going to drive in the rain.
No, that's right.
I mean, if Calvin's listening right now, he'd wonder what's wrong with us. But the rest of us, I'm the same way. And yeah, my car isn't made of sugar, but on the other hand, it's 19 feet long. It takes an awfully long time to clean after you get it dirty. But most of these things we don't want to drive them in that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, and we had a nice summer.
But we had a
for that.
nice summer, man.
And the amount of pop-up events that we had and attended, and we had so much fun. I made so many good friends.
Yep.
I spent more time with you this summer, which was great.
Thanks.
And I made a lot of new friends, and we had so much fun. It was the best ever.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think after a year, we're quite a ways into COVID now, and we're not through it yet, but it's getting there. But after the first summer of COVID, where there was a lot canceled, right?
Yeah.
We kind of got things rolling by the end, but we missed a lot
Yeah.
of 2020 summer.
We did.
I think everybody, especially after the winter between 2021, last winter sucked.
Yeah.
Christmas was with nobody. We were all so excited to be a part of that again.
Yeah.
And
Itching to get out.
Yeah, and I have to. Maybe it's just the romantic part of me thinking this way, but I sort of kind of dream that's in the 50s on 8th Street or the 60s on 8th Street. That's probably what it was actually like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just showing up on Friday and Saturday nights at the mall or at A&W or at Dairy Queen and hanging out with people and not formal, just always there and having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. There wasn't much else to do. There was 2 channels on TV, and everybody wanted to be out in their cars and having fun. And boy, what a fantastic deal we had. And like you say, COVID was probably had a lot to do with that. And I think we've been well informed this year. Rochelle with her posts on Facebook, and yourself with car show. And I want to say thank you for your car show corner post.
Because thanks.
To inform, that's doing a service. You're not only providing entertainment to the car community, but you're also providing a service by keeping us all informed, and I want to say thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks. I mean, I owe the big thank you to Rochelle too, though, because she's always the one cobbling everything together. I just get to help her out with it. So
she did a great job.
And amazing.
And you followed up with your car show post,
thanks.
And I appreciate it all.
Yeah, thanks. And it even though we had a new show added this year, right? We had Friday night, on Taylor, it's Preston, I guess, at Friday Night Classic is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Our new show at the Market Mall.
Right.
Well, there's plans next year to make that every weekend.
That's going to be awesome.
Every Friday night.
They had so much. They had so much participation with that, and then also the Sunday morning cars and coffee.
That's
deal.
right. That's
another
right.
new one. Another one was the Legion sip and shine deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those happened several times, right? You know, a bunch.
What else was there? There was several. And we didn't have the downtown car show. A lot of people were upset about that.
Yep.
We didn't have the Dragons car show in the spring. A lot of people missed that. But there were so many things that happened to make up for all
the stuff that was missed.
Yeah, that's right.
Totally. And I actually think it kind of brought, that getting together on a more regular basis. And it makes it how do I put it? When a car event only happens, say, once a summer, and you got to miss it, say, you're going to the lake, or you got a family reunion or a wedding, or what other else commitment you got, right? You're like, I wanted to go to that car show so bad. And either it didn't happen this year or you were stuck at something. But when there's just going to be something every Friday and every Sunday morning like that,
that's awesome.
If I got to miss this weekend, I'll be back next weekend, And it was just come and go. Man, it was great. I loved it. Yeah. I absolutely loved it. I'm really hoping that we've got Dragons for this next coming year, 2022.
Talking to the fellas, they are planning.
Yep.
They are planning to, there is plans in place to make something work. They don't know what the regulations and rules are going to be at that point, but they've got their ear close to the ground, and they're working on it. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. There is something special. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe it's just because I've been going to that show for so long, and it was a thing I did as a kid. But it's you see the real special stuff.
Yeah.
At the Dragons show.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all the stuff that the stuff we drive around, but you never really get to see, because the trailer queens, if we want to call them that, those cars that are so well done that they don't really hit the road. You don't see those driving around on a Saturday night on 8th Street, right?
That's right.
It's those real special ones. That's the chance to see that. Sort of our own little local Barrett-Jackson or SEMA, if you want to call it that,
Yeah, they've been lucky enough to get Riddler Award winners here.
Yeah.
And Boyd Coddington cars and George Barris cars.
I was there for that one, when George was there,
There was a lot of super high-end, really world-class stuff has showed up at that show for many years.
Yeah.
Every year there's something super special. And I really missed it.
Yeah, me too.
As well.
What I loved about being a part of it, we get together, like we were saying this summer. We're all hanging out as a big community in the car community in Saskatoon. Different clubs going to different events, and everybody's kind of mingling around. One of the cool things that I think happens at Dragons, it doesn't really happen anywhere else, is that we get the public there. So of course, all us car guys and car girls are together.
Yeah.
But then you get people coming in just as spectators.
Yeah.
And talking to the people at the Dragons. I got to be in the last Dragons before COVID, 2019.
Uh-huh.
And, my old car, I love it, but it's certainly nothing compared to some of the stuff that was there. But
your car is pretty.
Sure. I'll take the compliment. But here's the thing. I'd just love talking to the people who would come up and they'd say, "Oh, my grandpa had one of these," and they'd have 1,000 stories about it, And that happened over and over and over and over. And that was the best part. Is we all get to sort of hang out in the car community. We get to know each other and we know our cars, and you get to talk, and it's cool. But when you go to a show like that, you really get to interact with people. And it's not that I need to show my car off. It's that I'm just here with it. And the people that come with the stories and the comments and they
can relate.
They can relate.
Absolutely, they can relate, and that's a neat thing when people see your car and they're coming up to you and they've got neat stories about a car like it that they've had.
Yeah, and
it reminds them of, and that's what these things are so special about. There's that human connection to them.
Yes,
that makes the whole car thing. A great deal.
Yeah, it's not just a mode of transportation. It's not just. This is how I see it. It's not just A to B. And even if the vehicle was an A to B car, when they owned it, it becomes a special memory later on.
Yeah.
Right. Now these cars are 50-ish, whatever years old, around that, anyways, and. That's the thing. It was just a big, boring old Buick. But now it's a trip down memory lane.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now there's this connection that people remember. And, I brought a whole bunch of stuff to the Dragons that year and set up. I had an old turntable portable one that I found at, Value Village, about the same era as the car.
All era, correct.
Correct stuff. And I kind of got all the, records from 1969.
Cool.
Mamas and the Papas, and just what was the Guess Who and all the stuff that was playing on the radio back then.
That's awesome, yeah.
And I plugged it in and I just threw records on it. We just played them. And it was hilarious watching grandparents especially come with their kids and showing them what it even was.
Yeah,
the kids have never seen a record player,
That's right.
And your grandpa had a car just like this, and I remember that record down there. We had that record, like it was. That's the coolest part I think about Dragons, and that's why I'm really hoping it happens, because you get that part of the experience.
Yeah,
So
that is cool. That is super cool.
But you're totally right. It's a human connection thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of why I'm doing this podcast.
Yeah.
That's what it all comes down to. Why I call it Bald Tires, because when you make great memories, you make bald tires. That's my saying, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we get to talk about in this sort of thing. It's just that everybody's got a story,
Yeah.
Everybody's got a car story. Even if they're not car people, they've got car stories.
Absolutely.
That's just part of our culture and our life here, right? So
you love these cars. And it's because the large connection it has with all the people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, Gary, this has been a blast having you on.
Well, thank you very much,
Yeah.
Jay. I've enjoyed myself. This is a great conversation we're having, and had a lot of fun doing it. Glad you had me on here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me and taking the leap. If you want to see more of what Gary does, Gary the Gear, YouTube, you got some pretty cool videos there. You know, car shows that we've been together too, but also you did a cool comparison video, right? Was it Chevelle versus, what was that comparison?
Chevelle versus Malibu or something?
Right? Yeah, something like you did that, kind of walk through the differences of stuff and over the years. So go check out Gary's Facebook, YouTube channel. And otherwise, thanks for joining us on Bald Tires. We'll catch you next time, because when you make great memories, you make bald tires.